Today's workout, we're focusing on our knuckles. Without regular pad work and bag work, it's really easy to lose the toughness in our hands. So today's workout, we're gonna make sure we hit on all different angles. We wanna toughen our hand as a whole, so when we drop the hammer, and if we hit a bad angle, our hand is tough enough to take the shot. So one, it's about toughening the hands to prevent breaks, and two, it's gonna really teach you how to punch properly, and you getting to pick which knuckle you wanna land with.
Bazooka Joe Baltellini.
Regular knuckle conditioning is really important, especially for those who are competitive and follow the channel. It's one of your main weapons. You have to be able to land the shot and not be worried your hand's gonna break, especially when it comes to MMA fighters in that 4-ounce glove. It's really important that you're able to throw your punches on all different angles with confidence that your one, knuckle is gonna land and do more damage to your opponent, and two, your hand is safe enough not to break every time it lands. Especially times when you land on elbows or you hit someone's forehead, it's really easy for your knuckles to break. But if you train them regularly, it's less likely that it will happen. So regular training is important. We also want to make sure that we learn how to punch properly. This is what it teaches us. Because we're used to having wraps on and big gloves, you're able to get away with different, wrist positions. But when you punch bare knuckle, you have to make sure your wrist and your knuckles are aligned, otherwise you're gonna hurt your hand. If I'm punching this way, all right, that's how I'm gonna hurt myself. So now we have to make sure we're landing and we're staying nice and flat. So it teaches you to punch properly as well as toughen the hand. So something you should obviously be doing. There's a lot of mistakes that happen when people do their knuckle conditioning. And the first is going too hard, not using progression. If you're new to knuckle conditioning, you don't want to go out there and start hitting the bag as hard as you can. Take your time, build it up, start slowly. The second thing people do is scrape. What happens now, if they use a bag and the bag's moving and they throw this big wild hook and then the knuckle scrapes the bag, your knuckle starts bleeding, and that defeats the whole purpose of knuckle conditioning. It's about landing with the knuckles, not scraping them. The last thing is not understanding how to use your wrist and have it in line with your knuckle. Because we're so used to the wraps and big gloves, we don't know how to position our hand properly bare knuckle. So take your time, make sure our knuckles and our wrists are in line when we do land, regardless the position. As I just mentioned, one of the biggest mistakes people make is not using progression when it comes to knuckle conditioning. So the way I recommend is starting with a bag glove as well as a wrap. This way your knuckles are protected and you can still get some bruising through the bag glove. Now, once you get comfortable with a bag glove, I would just use a wrap. And the good thing about just the wrap is it prevents the scraping. So if you do miss the bag on one of your hooks, your knuckles will be okay and they're not going to bleed. Once you get comfortable in just the wrap, that's when you should take it off and then start slow again. Build up the conditioning, start with just the tapping, and then as you get more experience, bring up the power, change the angles, and really focus on deciding which knuckle you're going to land with. Round one is going to be about our straight punches and landing with the first two knuckles, our classic traditional martial arts punch, okay? But when we do this round, I want you to be able to change from a horizontal as well as a vertical punch, all right? And you want to make sure the two knuckles are in line with the wrist. Whether I throw a vertical punch, you can see I have my two knuckles in line with my wrist. Same thing when I come horizontal, the top two is attaching. So this way, I'm never gonna hurt my wrist. If you're new to the straight punch, just work on just tapping the target. Finding the two knuckles every time you throw, whether I'm throwing vertical or horizontal punches. Those who are more advanced, this is when you can start mixing in more power shots as well. Round two, we're focusing on hitting with the bottom two. A lot of coaches are gonna tell you not to land with them. But when it comes to your boxing technique and angles, it's really effective to land with them. Say I'm throwing a nice up shot down the middle, or I might throw an overhand, I'm using these two knuckles. So it's not wrong to land with them, but it's important to knuckle condition so when you do land with them, they're tough and strong just like your first two. So round two, just find different angles on both hands. landing with those too. Even throwing a straight punch, I might throw a more jammed punch to get a little bit of a stronger angle on the inside. I'm landing with those bottom too, okay? So mix them up on angles, throw them in combination, and find different ways to toughen them up. Round 3 is about the hooks, and we're gonna find different angles to throw them. And depending the way you throw it, you're gonna find that you can land different parts of the knuckles. For example, I like to throw my hooks with my thumb up, and I can throw it with a lot of power and land with my knuckles every time. However, when I throw overhand shots, I find my knuckle isn't strong enough in that position. So when I do this round of hooks, I try to find different positions that hurt, so this way I can work. And then if I ever have to throw that punch at that angle, I know my hand and knuckles can take it. All right, mix up the position, the angles, as well as the sides of the hooks. Take your time and build it up as you get more advanced. Remember, all about the wrist position, especially if you don't want to scrape these two knuckles. A good tip, bring my wrist in. As soon as I tuck my wrist nice and tight, it's easier for me to land with the knuckle. Round 4, we're gonna mix our straight punches, our hooks, and our uppercuts. But the idea in this round is you pick, you decide which knuckles you wanna land depending on the punch you're throwing. So I might throw a jab with the first two knuckles, come up with the bottom two, and then change where I wanna land my other punches. But I'm looking at landing on different angles, whether they're straight punches, cut downs, uppercuts, all right, and different parts of the hand every time. Round 5 is about the hammer fist and back fist, really hitting on odd angles that you might not normally do. Okay, might be hitting with our thumb, mixed with the pinky. Again, simulating that big hammer fist that you might be throwing in ground and pound and MMA. So make sure your hands are completely strong in every angle. Especially as a kickboxer, a lot of the breaks happen in the hand, not at the knuckle. So this is why you want to make sure you get that vibration and the density of the bone. So this way, when you smack that target and you might hit an odd angle, you know your hand will be fine. Okay? Odd angles. Round 6, freestyle round. This is where you mix it all up. Straight punches, round punches, uppercuts, hooks. But remember, you decide which knuckle lands and where you want to land it, okay? That's the key to this type of training.